This time it's personal, I guess. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well out there. And today we're going to head back to Amity Island one last time and then to the Bahamas. But before we take that trek, do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Join me here. Great, would appreciate that. And today is the day, folks. Today is the day for a treat. Today it's personal. And today we're talking about Jaws the Revenge, or Jaws 4, depending on how you look at it. Jaws the Revenge came out June 17th of 1987. It's rated PG-13. It's about an hour and 32 minutes long, had a budget of $23 to $30 million. Upon release, it only made $20 million in America and 51 worldwide. So this is the lowest grossing film in the Jaws franchise. Steven Spielberg had nothing to do with this film, and the only actor to come back from the original film is Lorraine Gary. We'll get to her in a second. Joseph Sargent came in to direct this film. He was handpicked by Sid Sheinberg, who ran Universal at the time, to make a fourth Jaws film. Universal was in desperate need of a hit, and they thought this would be a surefire hit for the summer of '87. Unfortunately for them, it was not. But Joseph Sargent directed a lot of things over the years. He did movies and a lot of TV. He was still doing TV up until about 10 years ago. I'm not sure if he's still directing, but he directed the excellent The Taking of Pelham 123 in 1974 with Walter Matthau and Robert Shaw. If you've never seen the original, I know they remade it. Tony Scott remade it with Denzel Washington and John Travolta, and I like that version. But the original is excellent, so I implore you to check it out if you're into thrillers. It's a great movie, and he does a great job with that movie. I just got the Kino Lorber Blu-ray, and I haven't watched it yet, but I'm looking forward to revisiting that film because I really like it. Now, the only person to come back to the franchise from the original two films is Lorraine Gary. She was actually married to Sid Sheinberg, the CEO of Universal at the time. So she came in back to play Ellen Brody. Lance Guest comes in to play Michael Brody. And I like Lance Guest as an actor. He was in Halloween 2, The Last Starfighter, a werewolf movie from about 4 or 5 years ago called Late Phases. If you've never seen it, check it out. And I've always liked Lance Guest. He's a likable guy. He's always likable when he's on screen, and there's no difference here. Mario Van Peebles plays Jake. Him and Michael are marine biologists, and they work out of the Bahamas, and they work very closely together, and they're very good friends. And the great, legendary Michael Caine plays Hoagie, and he is an airplane pilot on the island of the Bahamas. And Michael Caine could read an instruction manual and find a way to make it fascinating. He's one of our great actors of all time, and he's good here. And it's always great to see Michael Caine show up. And we'll talk about why he took this film and some of his quotes about it later on as we get through this review. This is going to go probably a little long because there's a lot to say about this one. Right at the beginning of the film, we're back on Amity Island. It's Christmas time. And Sean Brody is now the chief of police of Amity Island. And we see him with his mother, and he goes he's with Ellen, but then he goes to the sheriff or the police station, and he's getting ready to leave, and we see a portrait of Chief Brody from the original film in the police station. So keep a lookout on that. If you've never seen this film, check it out. That Blu-ray, I just picked it up. It actually has a pretty decent transfer on it. They did a nice job. It's actually the best the movie's ever looked, and I don't foresee them. Maybe they'll give it a 4K to do a box set, but it looks pretty damn good on Blu-ray. So he gets told by Paulie, who's still around from the original film, that there's a piece of driftwood on the channel marker down in the harbor, and the Coast Guard's tied up. Can he go take care of it? So Sean goes down to the harbor, gets in the boat, goes out, and we get an awful attack sequence. The shark comes, rips his arm off. It's just shaky cam, and the camera's just it's like somebody was throwing the camera around to get these shots. So quick cut, you can't really see much. He's screaming for help, but there's a Christmas concert going on. These kids are singing, so nobody hears him. Then the shark comes and just takes him into water. He's floating in the water, still yelling for help, and then he's dragged under, and that's how we start the film with the death of Sean Brody. We find out that Chief Brody died of a heart attack some years earlier, and Michael comes back to Amity for the funeral for his brother, and his mother blames the shark, wants him to change his job, doesn't want him going back in the water for obvious reasons, and says the shark, for some inexplicable reason, she says the shark killed his father as well. The fear killed his father. And I'm like, Chief Brody killed 2 sharks. Yes, he was afraid of the water, but I don't think he died from the fear of the shark. I mean, obviously she's going through the shock. She just lost her son. But some of the dialogue and some of the things they came up with for this film are nonsensical, to say the least. Well, she gets invited to go to Bahamas and spend Christmas with Michael, his wife, and her little girl, her granddaughter, who's about 8 or 9. So we're introduced to Hoagie. They're on the plane going to Bahamas, and we get introduced to Hoagie, and him and Ellen strike up a relationship right away. Hoagie fancies Ellen, and Ellen fancies Hoagie, but pretty soon we discover the shark has followed them from Amity Island, which is Martha's Vineyard, about 800 miles down to the Bahamas, because it wants revenge, folks. In this movie, the shark does want revenge, which I always thought was a dumbass plot point, but we're going to talk about that a little bit. So Michael's out doing this research with Jake and 2 other crewmen on this barge, and the shark shows up, and they decide they're going to try to study the shark as well. They got a big ass great white shark. It's a great opportunity for them in their career, because they're studying sea slugs right now, but the shark is even a more tempting thing to study. So Jake hooks up this gets it on the side of the shark so they can track the shark. And meanwhile, Ellen's having dreams about the shark and shark attacks. And the god-awful dream sequences, they're not very well done in this movie, but there's a few of them in this film. Oh, there's a few. Actually, I think there's 3 total. Ellen has 2, and then Michael ends up having 1. And then pretty much to fast forward through this nonsensical plot, the shark attacks Michael while he's working, although there's a scene where Jake's in the water and the shark just kind of comes up to him, looks in the sub and bumps it, but never attacks it. But when Michael's in the sub, it attacks it and tries to eat him. But he gets away. He outsmarts the shark. The shark, Thea, their little girl, is on this banana boat ride in the harbor while the mother is giving a speech, because she just created this art piece for the beach in the Bahamas, the island they live on, and the shark attack. It's actually it's probably the best attack sequence of the whole film. The banana boat one, I think it's pretty decent, that one. It's probably my favorite out of the whole movie. And then finally, Ellen's had enough. She takes their boat out into the ocean by herself, doesn't know how she's going to do it, but she wants to kill that damn shark. Hoagie, Jake, and Michael fly in. Hoagie lands the plane in the water. The shark attacks the plane. We think Michael Caine got eaten, but he gets to say off one final line if he did get eaten, which he doesn't. But, oh shit, he yells and gets it back in the plane, but he gets away. It's a famous shot of Michael Caine climbing out of the water, just in the ocean, and his shirt's completely dry. Yes, a continuality error. There's a few in this film, but that's the major one I know a lot of people talk about. And then finally, Jake gets eaten. For sure, he's dead. He's in the jaws of the shark, literally sitting in the mouth. There's no way this guy is alive, and we're going to talk about that, because in one version he dies, and in one version he lives. The version on this one, he lives. And then Ellen stabs the shark in this version. We'll talk about the 2 different endings. And the shark inexplicably explodes on contact. And that's the end of Jaws, The Revenge. They make it back. There's a shot of them in the water, which is clearly a tank. You can see the water splashing up against the backdrop they have laid in the background. And that's pretty much the end of Jaws, The Revenge. So what to like about this film? Well, let me get this out of the way. I've seen this film probably after last night. This is probably like the 12th or 13th time I've watched this film. I've reviewed it in the past, and the last time I reviewed it, I hated it. I've hated this movie for a long time. Last night, now, I'm not saying this is a good film. We'll get into that. But last night, rewatching it again, I didn't hate it. I had a rudimentary good time with it. Some of the actors in this film I do like, and their performances are fine, even though the shit they get to say is not very good. I mean, obviously the script was a dumpster fire. Michael Caine knew it. This is one of his legendary paycheck pictures. Michael Caine used to do a lot of movies just for the paycheck because they weren't very good. He did The Swarm is one that I always bring up. The one about the killer bees, that was one that he did for just a paycheck. There's other ones as well, and this is one as well. Matter of fact, Michael Caine's been quoted as saying, by all accounts, I've never seen the movie, but by all accounts, it's terrible. But I have seen the house that it built, and it's spectacular. So that's what at least he's honest. I respect Michael Caine for being honest about it. And it's pretty cool that he'd be that forthright about it. I love Michael Caine here. I think Michael Caine, like I said, he could read an instruction manual and find a way to make it interesting. He's a great actor, one of the best of all time, and he's good here. He's just not in a very good movie. Mario Van Peebles is another actor I've always enjoyed when I've seen him show up in movies. I liked him in Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood. a little movie called Full Eclipse that HBO did back in the early 90s about cop werewolves, which I'm going to review coming up for getting closer to Halloween. I've wanted to review it for a while, and we're going to go down that road. And I've seen him in other things. I've always enjoyed him, and I think he's pretty good here. Lance Guest, I like a lot too, and he is good here and likable as well, even though the script isn't very good. I don't blame the actors here. Lorraine Gary's fine here. I mean, she's the lead of this movie. This was her chance to star in a film, and she's okay here. She just gets to say some dumb shit because the script is awful. And then the whole... I think some of the underwater photography is pretty well done. There's a cool shot where Michael's in this sunken ship trying to get away from the shark, and it goes over top, and it's just in this little opening, and I think that's a pretty cool shot. Some of the underwater stuff is pretty well shot. It's pretty well handled. The shark does not look the greatest. Considering this was 87 and they had a lot more money than Spielberg, again, the shark looks awful. Other than those positive, I didn't hate it though. My time with it, I kind of enjoyed it. It's not a good movie. Again, it's not a good movie. I think I had more fun with Jaws 3D. I still find Jaws 3D more fun to watch. It's a more fun watch. This one, because some of the actors I really like, and there's some cool underwater shots. That banana boat attack scene is still my favorite. Those are my positives. Let's get into the negatives because there are quite a bit. Well, the plot sucks. The idea of a shark out for revenge is just awful. Now, it just doesn't make any logical sense, obviously. Now, reading some quotes from the director, he was interviewed about this film back in the early 2000s. And he said they were trying to bring some mystical elements to the film. And on those bases alone, okay, I hate it. But I could see where he was going with it. Because there's a part in the movie where Jake is down in the sub. And as I said earlier, and the shark just comes up and kind of looks in at Jake and bumps it, but he doesn't attack it. When Michael's in it, it goes full on and rips it apart, trying to get to Michael. And it obviously is targeting the Brody family. Doesn't make sense. It's dumb as hell. But I could see if they were going along those lines, so that's a bold strategy, Cotton. I could see where he was coming from. If that's what that was where they decided to go with the film. So under that premise, under reading those quotes from the director, even though I still say it's bullshit, okay, I can accept that it's a dumbass movie and there's dumbass shit in it, but I'll go along with you. Okay, I understand where they're coming from. And he's even quoted as saying the revenge plot was in the script originally, and they always thought it was kind of ridiculous, but they thought they could make it work on film. Obviously, they failed. But knowing that knowledge going into it this time, because I read up on it before I rewatched it, I think it helped me just settle down and just let it wash over me instead of already hating it from pressing play, from my viewing experiences in the past. So on that aspect, I think I'm being a little more kind to it this time, because last time I ripped it a new asshole. I'm going to shit on it a little bit here, and I didn't love it. I don't think it's a good movie. I don't think it's even an okay movie. But I had a better time with it than I anticipated, considering my previous experience with this film over the years. Noise, the famous shark roar at the end of the film, came from a Tom and Jerry cartoon from 1946 called The Milk Waif. And I'm not even joking about that. The sound editor refused to make an original sound for the shark because he thought the idea of a shark roaring was so ridiculous, he just lifted it off an old Tom and Jerry cartoon. That everybody knew this was a ridiculous premise, but they went ahead and made the film, and Universal sank some big money into this for 87. Michael Caine actually won the Oscar the year that he was filming this film, and he was so busy filming this film that he wasn't able to accept his Oscar that year. Isn't that a bitch? Roy Scheider was offered a cameo. In the original script, Chief Brody was still around, and he's the one who died in the beginning of the film, right in the beginning of the film instead of Sean. Roy Scheider didn't come back. A matter of fact, he said Satan himself could not convince him to do Jaws 4. So he didn't come back. They rewrote it, and Sean was the chief of police and got eaten in the beginning of the film in a very terrible attack sequences. Most of the attack, the banana boat and the stuff with Michael in the water is okay. But the shark stuff just doesn't work in this film. I mean, we're so far removed from what Spielberg did in their first film, or hell, even with what Schwartz did in the second film. We're way beyond that. Like, I mean, they had the money, but this movie was not well executed at all, obviously. This is the only Jaws film not to take place in summer. It takes place at Christmas time. It's kind of a depressing movie. There's a lot of crying and whining going on. And I understand it. She just lost her son. And then at the end, let's talk about the end of the film. Let's get on to the coup de grace of this film, the ending. Now, the ending was shot 2 ways, okay? And the original ending is definitely my favorite. You can find it on YouTube, the original Jaws uncut ending. I'm going to post a couple pictures right here next to me while I'm talking about it. Just a few, like 2 or 3, to give you an idea of what the ending is if you've never seen it. The ending is actually on that Blu-ray. There's only 2 special features, the trailer and the original ending. And the original ending makes a hell of a lot more sense. So let's get into it right now. When Elle's on the boat and Hoagie and Jake and Michael catch up to her, this is after Jake's already been eaten. The shark's roaring and coming towards them in that ridiculous freaking scene. And the shark spends more time out of the water than in the water at this point. And in the original cut, Helen pierces, you'll see this photo here, the shark with the tip of the boat, the mast of the boat. It goes into the shark and blood starts spilling out of its mouth. And the boat breaks apart and you see everybody fall into the water and the shark's going down while it's still attached to the boat and it's dead. That's how the original cut went. Now, the effect wasn't great, but that ending makes a hell of a lot more sense than the reshot ending. The reshot ending is the one that's on that Blu-ray right there and the one that's on most of the home video releases. Although if you do happen to catch it on cable, you might see the original ending. You might. It's not guaranteed. But the reshot ending is Ellen stabs the shark again. It's the same shot, but then the shark inexplicably explodes on contact in an awful effect shot. And then we cut to the original footage from the original Jaws of the shark sinking to the bottom of the ocean. They didn't even shoot the goddamn thing. They cut it out of the original movie and put it in this movie. That footage of the shark sinking to the bottom of the ocean. Holy shit. Talk about a complete and utter dumpster fire in amateur hour filmmaking by a director who's done good work in the past. I think this movie had it was rushed production. They only had 9 months to complete this film, where the other films, especially the first 2 films, took like a year to do, at least. This one, they had 9 months to complete it. I think they were rushed. They didn't have any more time, and they just kind of went with what they had. And Jesus Christ. Not to mention, on the boat, before Ellen stabs the goddamn shark, we're getting cuts of the shark roaring out of the water, and then Ellen looking at the shark, and in her mind, she's having flashbacks to things she never witnessed. Sean getting killed at the beginning, she wasn't there for it. Nobody witnessed it. Chief Brody from the original film, shooting the shark and the shark blowing up. Ellen wasn't there. Matter of fact, Chief Brody's the only one that saw it. Hooper didn't even see it because he was at the bottom of the goddamn ocean. Some of this shit is just ridiculous. It is. And that's how the ending went. It's not... The ending on that DVD, Blu-ray, the one that's in the film, sucks. The shark just explodes on contact. It makes no sense at all. At least the original ending makes sense for what they were going for. They should have just stuck with it. Why they reshot it? They said it in a test screening it got bad reviews. Well, the test screening people must have been high on crack or something, because it makes a hell of a lot more sense than the one they ended up putting on the goddamn movie. And the ending in the tank, I remember seeing that as a kid. Like, they're in a freaking tank. I could see the water splashing up against the goddamn backdrop. I mean, this movie, they cut corners. They had the money. I just think, I don't know what went wrong. A lot of things went wrong into making a very shitty Jaws sequel. But at the end of the day, this is not a good film whatsoever. It's one of those films you could sit down with your friends, drink some beer, and have a good time with it on that level. I think Jaws 3 is one of those movies you can have more fun with it than this one. But I didn't hate my time with it this time like I did on previous watches. I kind of just, after reading what the director has said, I kind of just let it wash over me and just took it for what it is. A very shitty, inferior Jaws sequel, but at the end of the day, not the worst shark movie I've ever seen. So this time I'm going to be a little bit more generous with this film. I think in past, I've given it like 1 out of 10. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10 this time. I don't hate it. As a matter of fact, I'll rewatch it from time to time, knowing now what I know now about the film. But yeah, it's not a great film. 3 out of 10 for Jaws the Revenge. Have you ever seen this one? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the like button. I greatly would appreciate that. I'll be back soon with some more reviews, but until next time, bye.